guys.
But it is.
We're going to call to order this meeting of the Plain Township Board of Trustees. If everybody will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before us, we have our agenda for Tuesday, September 26th. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads at this time? Okay. The agenda will stand as presented. We don't have anything under the sheriff's report, but is there anybody in the audience that has anything for the sheriff? Okay, that'll close that. Unfinished business, I'm going to turn it over to our administrator, Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you. Resolution, or motion number one is a resolution, now that the part-time seasonal employees are ending their seasonal employment and where Plain Township has many special events scheduled for the balance of the year. It's a resolution to authorize current employees to assist in staffing these events as needed and to pay those employees from account 01B01A.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion.
This is to, gosh, we have an awful lot of special events coming up, and I know that a lot of our administrative staff, not ourselves up here, but support staff, cover those events and work it, and I just want to make sure that they're paid out of the correct fund when they're not specifically doing fire duty or road duty, that they're being paid out of the correct fund.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. That concludes unfinished business and new business.
Thank you. New business, I actually want to turn over to Mr. Steinberg, who has worked very hard to make what we're going to talk about next possible, the Gold Star marker at our Veterans Memorial Park.
I'm going to turn that over to the board.
Okay?
Well, I'll take the lead on this. As you know, obviously that hillside is continuing to evolve. It was 3 years ago pitched the vision, and the board got behind that vision. It was just last year that the Keystone Monument was set along with the Blue Star Memorial. Now we're in the process of we'll become the second community in all of Stark County to ultimately end up having a Gold Star Memorial marker there. This is possible because of collaborative relationship with the North Canton Garden Club. These folks were extremely ecstatic about partnering with us. We gave them the background of what's went on the hillside and the Blue Star Memorial, and they are committed to raising the money to procure it, as well as the surrounding site work. So again, no money from taxpayer dollars as we continue to develop that hillside. Essentially, the extemporaneous work will be done through fundraising and in-kind donations. They have indicated, and then as far as Wenger Excavating has donated the work to cut into the hill. So I think each of you guys may have a couple extra points in case you want to speak to them.
Only that, obviously, when we did the original Blue Star, we talked about the next phase being Gold Star. We just weren't exactly sure how we were going to be able to do that or the time frame, and I think this partnership kind of expedited that process a little bit. So, and we did get the flagpoles in between those two projects. So we're moving along, and each piece is being done phase by phase, and I think that's only going to help because as people see that progress and the amount of class that is being done with, I think we're going to continue to see more people that will donate both money and time, materials, whatever it's going to be. So I think it's a good move forward.
No, in normal veteran parks, the Gold Star and Blue Star is usually a sequence, the two, that they're usually both together.
The Gold Star is still so new in the scheme of
But do they
things.
try to get both always there at each park?
I think it's just a matter of the application, the way I understand it particularly. I will say that Judge Elam and Maslin has done a wonderful job over there with their Veterans Park, and that I know that they sit close together over there and are representative of those groups in a very, very meaningful manner. So I think that would be our goal here, to do the same.
Very good. I think it's awesome.
Nothing else that will conclude new business? It's going to take us to the fiscal officer's report and turn that over to Mr. Wool.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in an amount of $745,002.80.
I will so move.
I'll second it.
Discussion, just to clarify again, that this is a little bit higher than normal because of the second half of the majority of paving, I think. But we had close to about 600,000 at the last meeting that we approved in paving. This is another 480, so it's that $1 million. It allowed us to do 17.6.
It's actually 1.3 million this year.
1.3.
We still have 2 areas to do. It's going to get started next week, so.
So they'll be wrapping that up then within the weather timeframe.
Yeah.
And you stayed around the 18-mile range?
17.6.
Very good.
Okay. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
I'll move on fiscal officer number 2.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for the month of August. You'll see the total interest for the month is $8,816.76, which is the result of some of the investment changes I've made since taking office. Just for comparison purposes, the interest income for March of 16, which was the month before I took office, it was $1,449.08, so that's about a $7,400 increase per month.
Definitely a lot better use of our taxpayers' resources in that aspect. Okay. If anybody's got any questions on the rest of the report, feel free to sit down afterwards.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 5 is the bank reconciliation for the month of August.
Okay.
And Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
I'll move on fiscal officer number
I'll
6.
second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for a liquor permit renewal from Sully's Four Boys LLC, DBA The Barrel Room, located at 7901 Cleveland Avenue Northwest, Suite D, North Canton, Ohio, 44721. Sheriff's Department had no issues with the renewal.
No, it's just saying literally renewal.
It's just
Just
a
a
renewal.
renewal.
They're gonna have, they're
They
doing
have
something on
they have
the
something on the
initiative
ballot.
on the ballot.
Mhm.
Yeah, for
Yes.
for premium bourbons, liquors, I believe up there. So it's actually been amazing. You can take that old trucking transfer station
Yeah.
and how that's been split out there and repurposed. It really is.
It may or may not be close to my office, and it may or may not be a great place to get a glass of wine.
We know.
Lot to move forward.
And Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to certify the lighting districts established in Plain Township and is shown on the attached list for the tax year 2017 to the Stark County Auditor for the period of 1 year.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the Fiscal Officer report.
Thank you, Mr. Wool. Takes us back to our administrator, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Item number 1 is actually, should be titled Well Water Screening Event, but from, on October 5th from 4:30 to 7:30, the Stark County Health Department is sponsoring a What's in Your Well Water event. If there's any interest, you can visit the website for all of the details, but it's a way for them to do some testing on your well water, which is something really nice for residents who do have well water. Item number 2, I'll present the resolution and then we'll of course have discussion, but is a resolution to authorize and to pay in the amount not to exceed $6,000 from Fund 01G02, which is our police fund, to enter into the attached service agreement with Nixle Solutions and to allow myself to execute all documentation to implement the Nixle platform.
I will so move.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Captain Springer to join in the discussion as he wishes. This is a project we've worked on for about the last year, getting the information together, going back and forth with Nixle about it. But basically what Nixle is it is a program that allows us to immediately notify our residents during any type of emergency incident, whether it's a natural disaster, a terrorist event, an active shooter, severe weather, road closings, Amber Alerts, public safety information, sharing of criminal activity, in a very simple format, meaning our residents would simply type whatever the code ends up being. I'm just going to say, 855 to Plain Township, how we set it up, and then they're automatically enrolled. There's no cost to the resident. Anyone can sign up for an account. It is an incredible way to stay abreast of what's happening in the community, especially as you look around worldwide what's happening. It is a way to get out to our residents it'll send them an email, a text, it'll go on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, how many different ways they want to get notified, they will get notified. So if anything major happens in the county or the state of Ohio or Plain Township, we can instantly notify our residents of the situation. For instance, if it was an evacuation or a shelter in place or something specific to a certain neighborhood, let's say there's a rash of crime in, Wellington, we could push out notifications to them, but it's just a unique and very good way to notify really our community of anything. Captain Springer.
For lack of better terms, for probably last year and a half, we've been field testing this. That's why I say lack of better terms. We're currently up to around 1,100 users, and typically most of our posts are going to be dealing with or related to strictly the snow bans or construction or road closures in and around Plain Township. Right now, there's only one user authorized on the account, and that's myself. This gives the township an opportunity to allow everybody, various department heads as well as their employees, to be able to have access to this and put the information out. So I think it's a good step forward.
Yeah, and we've been field testing kind of the free Nixle program, which doesn't allow the use of the many things we talked about, like the multiple ways to be contacted. And I do have a step for a plan to implement Nixle, and a lot of it is, first of all, informing the residents about this program, but even at any Plain Township events, let's say somebody doesn't have their cell phone to sign up, we would have iPads there, and then they could sign up. So we'll really do a lot of community outreach with this, and as the board knows, I have a majority of the homeowners associations contacts, so I think I can work with homeowner presidents and get the information out, and we'll come up with a nice marketing plan to really get this out here, because just having the free, having 1,100 people on it, is actually a very good number for that. But our goal, we'll set a goal of how many people, and especially given, unfortunately, what takes place nowadays, I think it's the best way, to communicate with the residents.
So how many administrators would we be allowed?
As many as we want, but
Oh,
what
so
I
it's
would
like
want,
limited?
well, yes, but what I would foresee is,
Department heads.
yeah,
Yes.
you have Chief, you have Joe, you have myself, you have Rob, you have Tom, because you can even push out notifications on events at this level, like, just a reminder, salute to veterans, event, and
So, Captain Springer, if I heard Lisa right, would that be a useful tool for instance, last night's Avondale meeting, if there was a break-in that night, would that be something you would throw out to those residents, that they would know that there was a break-in?
I think if we have a rash of events occurring in one evening, so not an isolated event, but maybe multiple break-ins, or we're chasing a bad guy through a neighborhood or something, that would be, if time permits, allow us opportunity to be able to push that out. I believe on this application here, not only is it generically a zip code or generically Plain Township, you're actually able to put a geofence around a specific location. So you can tag a specific neighborhood. So if we're getting a rash of car break-ins, we could alert the neighborhood to be able to do that. This will be further along in the implementation because there's a lot of steps we have to take first and have to get in place before we can do that. But that's the direction, is to be able to more timely inform the public of what's going on, not only on the LE side, but also across all department heads. If we have an active working fire, or we have a hazmat spill down at the railroad tracks, it allows us to notify the residents in the area that it could be a shelter in place or could be an evacuation.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it's critical for any emergency planning.
We have paid to test it because I get it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what those are.
Yeah.
It even says in the
Yeah.
bottom message.
Yeah, so we felt, we'd give it a good year, see how we felt. The difficulty we were having is only Captain Springer could put out notifications. And they only had to be related to, you know, pretty much the sheriff's department at that free level. So there is a much greater use for it than that.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that's the end of the administrator's report.
Thank you. We're going to turn it over to the Fire Chief, Mr. Schellenberger.
Yeah, item number one I have is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the purchase and installation and payment of one garage heater from Barley's Heating and Cooling and air conditioning for Station 3 not to exceed $2,500, taken from Fund 28A07C.
I will so
Second,
discussion to clarify, Chuck, you'd advise us, this is one of 4 heaters which got a cracked heat exchanger, correct? So there's,
Yes.
it needs to be repaired, it's carbon monoxide threat issue.
it's probably the oldest one in there too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from at
Yeah.
least 1983, so that year, so. we don't-
34 years has been.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. How soon will it be able to?
I would think within the next month or so, we'll have that.
I don't think we need it today.
Yeah, not today.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 2 is just kind of an informational topic. We're having the Stark County Firefighters Association Memorial at Little Flower Church on Diamond. I kind of enclosed a map of the route. There's a parade that they have. They'll start at the fire station and end up at Little Flower. So I kind of put the route on there. I'm going to get with the homeowners associations that are on the affected route, be kind of through Firestone, Hunter's Ridge, Wellington Woods, then on up to Little Flower. So we tried to go into some neighborhood because we've done these parades a lot of times and they kind of take you down the main street and a lot of people don't really see it because they just kind of go along with traffic. So we're trying to, put it maybe into the neighborhoods a little more so people will be a little more visible. So it's all 20 miles an hour, the roads don't have to be closed or anything like that. It's just basically trucks will travel the route. So it's early in the morning on Saturday, so about 9 o'clock in the morning.
And the memorial service immediately follows.
Correct. We'll have trucks from all over Stark County doing that day.
Chief, next this Saturday, sir?
No, it is October 14th. October 14th. Item number 3 is just an announcement for our open house, Fire Prevention Month. So we'll have an open house from 12 to 3 on October 15th, same weekend, and that'll be at our main station from 12 to 3.
Chuck, it's going to take us to road department, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to amend resolution number 17-281, passed on June 27, 2017, for the Plain Township pavement marking, contracted out to Oval Street Construction with an additional amount of $152.57.
So moved. Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to authorize the posting of temporary no parking signs for the Bothwell Cup in the Diamond Park allotment on October 20th and will be taken down on October 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to authorize the posting of temporary no parking signs for the Bothwell Cup on the north side of Diamond from Middle Branch to Diamond Park and on Middle Branch from Diamond to Prospect on the west side of the road, also October 20th through the 23rd.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 4 is a resolution to authorize the posting of temporary no parking for the lacrosse tournament in the Diamond Park allotment to be posted on November 3rd, to be taken down on November 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 5 is also a resolution to authorize the posting of temporary no parking for the lacrosse tournament on Diamond Street and Middle Branch, also to be put up on November 3rd and taken down on November 6th.
I'll move on road 5.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 6 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the posting of no-through truck signs on William Street Northeast between Donwood and Railway Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion to clarify what is this being driven by?
I
Just
received
right now.
this letter from one of our deputies. They had, trucks are doing damage to people's properties because the GPS is sending these trucks to the trucking business. Turning right off the railway, going down that little street of William, and then turning left on the Donwood. And they're running things over. They've run down the stop sign 2 or 3 times. So the sheriff's office and I both believe we should put no-through truck signs. Because they got a straight shot if they stay on railway to get into the client's nursery back here. And then trucking business.
No, it looks pretty,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's in good shape and it does handle the truck traffic. This one, and a few residents have called.
Okay. No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it's going to take us to the zoning department. I'll turn that over to Mr. Fry.
Thank you, sir. Item number 1 is a resolution to proclaim items A through D as nuisance vehicles.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And item number 2 is a resolution to proclaim items A through H as nuisance payments.
I'll move on to zoning number 2.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 3, we mistakenly placed a resolution before the board at the last meeting for a text change. An item that is in the home rule, not in the zoning resolution. And so we have a resolution to withdraw that text change. So this is a resolution to withdraw changes in Amendment 57017, transient vendor policy, as it is part of the home rule and not part of the zoning resolution.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion as a follow-up. This really ties back to the discussion we had that it needs to go before the zoning commission first. I mean, because we still have to be able to nip this in the rear on that technicality. of, you know, the whole deferred payment versus immediate payment. So,
I talked with Tom today, and we'll bring you a home rule, a new version of the home rule resolution. It'll be a quicker process, it'll be a cleaner process. We'll have that for you next meeting. That's
okay. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And now the office zone.
Thank you, Tom. It's going to take us to the Parks Department, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number one is simply an update on our new software with Active. We launched it in March. It's gone really well for the most part. I know that Mr. Haynes and I have worked out a couple of bugs along the way with our POS module, and we seem to be getting on top of that. Wanted to let folks know that we are indeed open for registration for fall and indoor already. You can go online. Just click the link on the homepage and you'll find yourself where you need to be to create an account, log in, and register. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. Another quick announcement regarding that software is that as of November 1, we will be online for our shelter reservations as well, which means you can reserve your shelter, you can print your permit, and pay for your shelter without ever leaving the comfort of your own home. The only thing we'll ask you to do is if you reserve that, then please come in and pick up the key so you can get into that. But that's fairly easy to do. Finally, we have actually uploaded a couple other departments' GL codes so that as other department admin assistants get trained, they can simply invoice their own clients as well. So the Active software is stretching just, let me say it again. The Active software is stretching beyond just the Parks Department at this point. So I know the board had tasked us with that, and I feel confident enough to say a year in that I think we've gotten our arms wrapped around this this giant, and I think it'll be incredibly helpful as we move forward. So that was the first update.
Okay.
Second, and more entertaining for all of us, I think, is we are working to provide opportunities for people to hit balls indoors this winter. I see Mr. Lino smiling. We had him over to test drive it today. When we put the new netting in for the field a couple years ago, we put golf ball netting in for the purpose of this eventually down the road. We're at a point now where we're kind of just testing what works and what doesn't work with the space, and we should be open this winter for an indoor golf ball range. So we envision it being in the morning, first thing in the morning, our walking club, and then we'll move straight from walking club into our indoor golf range, and then that'll close up about 3 o'clock, just in time to open up for the evening programming that's already started. So we will fill a nice gap that has never been filled this winter.
I have one for Mark. I'm sure you two already been up there, but that sod, has everyone been up there doing the sod, water? It's unbelievable it's taken. I mean, it didn't even feel squishy. It looked like real grass. You guys are already cutting it. It looks very well done.
Thank you. We'll finish that up Thursday and Friday of this week as the weather comes down.
It looks, you've cut it twice. It's pretty amazing. It's really taken well.
I can't believe how fast it
I
attached.
thought it was gonna be squishy, but it's beautiful.
It's going to be perfect for the
Thank you.
facilities veterans.
The grass is really growing down.
Thank you. It's been a team effort on that hill from day one. Chief's department and Joe's department, Lisa and everybody's pitched in, so thank you all.
Okay. That concludes Parks. Takes us to Law Director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Just one item on the agenda. It's Hall of Fame annexation number 4. This is along Clearview. You can see from the map it's tied into 1, 2, and 3,
Which is the original footprint.
which is the original part.
And it incorporates the roadway.
Yeah, it looks like it does from your.
Yeah, from my review, it looks like Clearview from Woodward south will no longer be in the township.
So you can do what you would like.
I mean, it's based upon, our original agreement was anything within that footprint
Sure.
would proceed forward.
Yeah, then there's
As
no
long
need
as
for
it
you
was,
to take any
as long as
action.
it was done. So, our only challenge in the past was where we had houses taken and the roadway was being left. So it's not exactly fair and reasonable to put that, but that's not the case here. Just Bob, move on. It's going to take us to communications, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. We have several communications tonight. The first one is from Tyler Lotzenheiser to Mr. Iacino, and it reads, I'm a resident of Plain Township and would like to take this time to thank you and your department for maintaining our roads. I'm sure you receive many negative emails, letters about the roads that need repair, but I've seen on the Plain Township website you are aware and actively maintaining them, despite what some people may think. Considering winter is coming, I am sure you and your department will have your work cut out for you, as always, but I know you get the job done in a timely fashion. Thank you again. Tyler Lawson,
Tyler's smart.
Did that also say a distant relative?
Mr. Tricino, I think he's getting ready to tell you, take care of my roads when the snow's coming. This guy's smart.
Yeah, he's ready.
Whoever that is, he's smart.
The next thank you is from Stark County Soil and Water to myself and all of our Plain Township assistants, Linda and Vicki, Marilyn. It's essentially a thank you for providing the location for the vermiculture workshop. They appreciate the participation by our staff in the harvesting of the compost, and they were troopers, Becca O'Neill. And we did have a large attendance at that workshop, so it was very nice. Then number 3 is for the fire department. It says, thank you for being our guide. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for helping us to be safe. Love Reed. And you'll see Reed is 4.
4-year-old little girl.
Sign her name. And then her brother wrote the next one from Nina, so, or his sister, and essentially says the same thing, so. Thank you. Do you have the hard copies? Because that second one, you didn't scan them all.
Yeah, they
Show
just,
the board the pictures.
a couple of kids come by, they stopped at the station
Oh, I see.
one week, and then they came back the next week and dropped these off. They're pretty neat. We were outside doing some stuff with the trucks, and they were all about the place, so they were nice,
Yeah.
nice kids.
That's cool.
Use their own pictures, which is nice. And then item number 5 is from Alan Harold as the president of the Avondale Community Improvement Association. And this goes to our sheriff's department, Captain Springer, Sergeant Koenig, the sheriff who was at the meeting last night, and thanking our board of trustees. It says Sheriff Meyer, Major Stans, Captain Springer, Sergeant Koenig, and Detective Ross. On behalf of the Avondale Board, a few words of sincere appreciation to each of you for your fine presentation and willingness to come meet with our residents last evening. I hope you can agree the discussion was very positive and that our neighbors were very engaged on ways to improve the safety and security of our Avondale community. Thank you for taking the extra time to field so many questions and for the sincerity in your approach to handling all points. The feedback from the residents last night and continuing this morning has been overwhelmingly grateful and positive. Trustee Hawes, Lino, and Sabo, I echo the same comments as above to you, and know I appreciate your presence and continued open mind as our board explores solutions to help address our neighborhood concerns. The board looks forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you again, Alan. And that is the end of communications.
Brings us to the portion of the meeting, public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board, state your name and address for the record. Sir, 3 minutes, we got 3 minutes, so.
My name is Rich Cicero, I live at 3440 Overhill Drive.
Can everybody hear?
It's blank, I must have
Okay.
it on.
I can hear you, but probably people, of course it's for us anyways.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Good. Can hear you.
I'm here to address the article that was in Camp Repository a few weeks ago regarding the Hall of Fame and the annexation in basically our neighborhood. I grew up in the city of Canton, and I lived there for 13 years. And for the statement to be made that the townships have pretty much outlived their usefulness is very untrue. As a matter of fact, I see that townships are more important than ever. My wife and I moved to Plain Township because of what's going on in the bureaucracy that they call the city of Canton. And we're very happy to be there. Like I said, 21 years. I mean, we spent a lot of money on our home. A few of the things that were said regarding the emergency response for a hotel if it goes in there. And basically the Plain Township covering the emergency, and if they want reimbursed going after, the insurance companies. Myself and a lot of the residents in our area don't buy that, for 1 minute. They go after the insurance companies. I'm sure you guys are not equipped with the personnel to do that, so that's one thing. Another thing, and it's kind of the big thing for me, is the traffic in the area. Right now, between Westmoreland, Darlington, Clearview, and Blake Avenue, people don't want to wait for the light down at the 77, or the on-ramp to 77, so they cut through our neighborhood. They put stop signs, and it's ongoing. I went down after the last meeting and sat there for 5 minutes, and there was 10 cars that went through stop signs just to get to 77 as quick as they could. Last night, when we had the meeting over at St. Michael's, I showed Mr. Mino a Google Maps, and I Googled why we were at St. Mike's, and it was basically, you know, directions to 77 North. It took us through Avondale. It didn't take us down Fulton Road. And before any of this even starts, we've got to stop it. And a couple of things that I'd like to suggest. Number one is put a traffic counter going down the hill off of Clearview down onto 77. That way we can monitor the amount of traffic it is going through our neighborhood. The second thing, and you know, the on-ramp is a great convenience for the neighbors. You know, and like I said, I've been there for 21 years, and you know, I like it. I like having it there. But I would sacrifice that, you know, to protect our neighborhood. And I just don't see any way with the number of entrances on Fulton Road that you're going to be able to stop this traffic without getting rid of that entrance to the on-ramp. And that's basically what I want to talk to you about, because I feel very strongly about this. And we've got a lot of young kids in the neighborhood, and you know, that's my neighborhood.
Well, allow me to speak to it first, because I know you were here at the last meeting and said something to the board afterwards. First and foremost, the board worked for a year trying to get an agreement done with the city of Canton. And unfortunately, last minute, it was a 180 that caught the board and our law director off guard. Honestly, a lot of the reasons you're noting specifically are reasons why we pushed for the agreement. Now, unfortunately, the media, and I'm not necessarily targeting anyone specific, you know, didn't communicate that it was going to be a concern of back in the neighborhoods. Because Plain Township's never maintained Fulton Road, which is a state road, 77, 62. Very much the concern has been from the forefront back into the residential area, because we know with state access management, with the acquisition of that, the annexation of that property, knowing that there's also a project for 6277 Fulton Road interchange going to be bid February of 2018, starting April of 2018, which is unheard of for the most part, that quick of turn. Would you agree, Joe?
Yes, very much so.
We know there's a high probability of state access management with the fact the cul-de-sac in Blake, they're going to run concrete curbing the entire way out across Fulton, so it's naturally going to dump all that traffic out to the side on Clearview or out to Back Street. As you alluded to try to get across three lanes of traffic to head east without a light there, that's just an accident waiting to happen. And we know, based upon volume projections that had been previously provided, I think right after Trustee Sabo had come on board, some quick calculations, even if you take a fraction of those, knowing that we've got mutual and automatic aid agreements with Canton, knowing the proximity of our station, and we've got mutual and automatic aid agreements with a lot of other communities. There's still, and you know, actually, you know, when John was chief, Chuck now is chief, prior Chief Snyder, we monitor those numbers through our monthly reports to make sure if anything starts to get out of a line, that they're sitting down and talking. Now, Canton's one station over off 25th isn't exactly a mile away. It's not distance, but in an urgent situation, we know there's a high probability that we're going to be the ones responding to it. We also know that you, along with a number of other residents, entrusted this board and this team with additional financial resources to improve the response to you and the other residents, and not necessarily be running as many mutual and automatic aid calls into what would now be a Canton City parcel. And really the response that, well, hey, you guys get them, you can hard bill them. The challenge is that these are transient people, they're from outside, so pinning down good addresses and so forth in order to collect on that hard bill amount, there's likely more time going to be spent in collections with that. Now, I will tell you, our team's done a pretty good job. I think Chuck may be able to speak, and I'm not trying to put you on, but Rebecca Schaefer, who's the admin down there, has done a good job of helping Chuck and the team clean that process up. So we can be more responsive at the top of it, but there are collections that get pushed out to a third party because of the challenge. And what does that mean to you as a taxpayer? It means we're having to pay a third party to go after money that we should already be paid, which is undercutting the value that you initially opted to pay for and the benefit. So, you know, the stress on that. As well, the board looked at it from the perspective that knowing that that traffic is, you know, you guys have an option of trying to cut across 3 lanes to go east, only to jump on, say, 77 south or 62 east. A lot of that traffic may end up as a second option, heading west on Fulton to only turn around somewhere else in an allotment, in a business, or probably the highest probability will be, especially for anybody going 77 north, is they're going to zigzag right back through the neighborhood like you're expressing the concern of. So you got increased traffic, and we're not just talking residential vehicles, small pickup trucks. There's also the concern by this board that you're going to have delivery vehicles, whether that consists of a straight truck or possibly an 18-wheeler. Those roads back in residential areas are built to different standards than, say, some of the major highways and so forth. So now tying it into the fact that we've also been entrusted with additional resources to improve our paving, which we went from about 6.5 to 8 miles a year to this year 17.6, last year 17.2, which puts those roads on about a 10-year replacement cycle. Well, now, in that neighborhood area, there's potential that, and I'm just throwing out arbitrary, it could be every 6-7 years based upon what's going through there, the volume, the frequency, and so forth. Those are all things that come into account when we were talking through this. Unfortunately, we were willing partners to try to engage in cooperation. However, we had another partner that wouldn't when it come time to get it done. Unfortunately, given the fact that it's what we call type 2 expedited annexation, yeah, we keep the property taxes, and for the sake of what you may or may not have seen in the media or have heard from us, there's still long-term concerns of, you know, tipping and tax abatements. Tipping being tax increment financing, which goes to infrastructure. And Lord knows, based upon what the proposed plan is over there, there's likely going to be additional infrastructure updates that could be needed or required over time. So for one party to say, hey, there's not going, we don't have no tips or, you know, tax abatements plan, well, that sounds good in the here and now, but what happens when you're getting 2, 3, 5 years down the road? Those property tax dollars that should be staying to the township actually could be eroded, and we are taking a hit. So that's where it comes back to the give. So, you know, that's why we tried to create the win-win situation. Unfortunately, you know, regardless of the good relationships we've had down there, there was differences of opinion on here, and you know, there's nothing that we can do to stop that type 2 expedited, because essentially the state has criteria that when the commissioners get the documentation, we can dispute it on its merit, and then they'll determine whether or not, hey, do we feel it does qualify or not. And if it meets set criteria, the commissioners are obligated to sign off and move that. So literally, until something's done with the state to where they potentially change that, that's part of our situation where we're hamstrung. And you know, that's where the Volkswagers, the Schurings, the Hagens, the Tom West of the world definitely come in and help him lobby for any considerations and changes.
Well, let me ask you one more question. Can you cul-de-sac that off at Park Avenue? Clearly.
Honestly, right on the full, well, with that hotel going in right there, knowing Blake's gonna be cul-de-sac, I would have to say there's probably an extremely low probability of that. I mean, the commissioners are very antsy about even vacating any roadways, and ultimately it would be their call on whether or not to vacate it. So, in principle, it sounds good. The challenges would be persuading the commissioners. And we've had here in the township where folks have petitioned, this board, because we don't have the power and authority, we've had that information submitted to the county, to which then, they've asked our department heads and so forth to come in and speak, and they've made a decision. And unfortunately, in one situation, they opted to reverse it later. So, to be able to cul-de-sac, it's realistically going to fall to the commissioners, and just knowing how that's already been proposed to change with Blake being cul-de-sac, with the changing of the 6277 on the Fulton Road ramp, along with, I don't even know what the net impact would even be for access and our safety services, whether it's fire, EMS, or police. So I don't have a good answer for you. I don't think we collectively do it. John or Al, do either of you have anything you want to?
How is it that GPS takes a person to a allotment area? Do you know, is that just their route that they choose?
It is their software.
Pure software.
Because I saw that last night, when you gotta be kidding. I saw on his phone that GPS took him right through their allotment to get on the highway. That makes no sense.
And people,
So-
it's kind of a secret in our neighborhood, we like it, but people are
Right.
starting to find out about it. and
Well, you get
it's
someone
getting
GPS
ridiculous.
in it, from a distance, and all of a sudden they go right to the allotment.
And they don't pay attention to speed, 35, 40, 50 miles an hour through the neighborhood, blowing stop signs, to get there as quick as possible. You save 4 lights.
It's unheard of that the GPS would take something to the allotment. I know it goes as quick as rocket.
Well, unfortunately, we don't write software. It's
Right.
something that is the other influence. So that's,
That's the mapping software that comes from the private sector, Google, Apple, not from GPS satellites.
Well, you bring up a lot of really good concerns. There are some that we may have direct control over, there are some that we won't have direct control over. You're dealing with state issues, county issues. What we do collectively, though, as we start to see these projects start to develop, collectively we get together as a group and we look at every angle that can possibly be looked at. One of the issues, for example, and I can't remember what the resolution for that was, Joe, were we able to get the state to not do the detouring of traffic that was going to be rerouted around onto one of our roadways, Broad?
We're gonna detour traffic down Broad Avenue.
So see, if we wouldn't have got together to catch that would have just happened automatically. But because we knew that Broad Avenue was our street, the state can't reroute signage for traffic to be detoured that way. What we can't do is keep people off our streets. That's the unfortunate part. So when those people learn how they can use that shortcut, or learn how they can use that detour, they're going to use it. And then that right away brings up these other issues. But one of the things I was thinking about as this discussion is going on, and I'm not familiar with this process about speed limits. And I know for years I've always heard that we can't use 4-way stops to control speed. But what can we use 4-way stops for? Can we put 4-way stops up, for example, because of sight distances and safety issues?
Safety and sight.
So why, if we're going to evaluate that, maybe we look at those kinds of issues, and I realize it may not stop them from blowing the stop sign, but at least it's gonna take some of those people who are law-abiding and maybe abide by some of it. Those are tools that if we could use them, it might make more sense. And then the other issue is speed limits. And I know we have to have studies done before we can reduce the speed limit, but,
That's not true.
okay, so,
On township neighborhood streets, the board can lower the speed limit. Township streets.
okay,
It's 25 throughout the entire neighborhood.
yeah, that's, I mean, you don't want to get it any slower than that,
That's
so.
our bottom
Yeah.
speed limit, so throughout those neighborhoods, it's 25. I don't know of any other than Firestone Road from Easton to Wood Branch is 30.
Can you double fines for speeding and running?
We put a speed buggy out there to get a count, how many cars are using it, speed time.
The speeding
Yeah,
fines
spread
are
around
really
that.
set by, higher revised code for the sake of the sheriff's enforcement, correct?
Correct, sir, we set the high that's good.
Yeah, and if it's a heavy burden, we can have our deputy on that, whatever road you think that they're speeding at whatever set time, they'll sit out there for you, for a couple of days, you know.
Right now, it's from Westmoreland East, but they do come through.
Westmoreland's
Yeah.
always been a speed through Westmoreland.
But, people do come down Blackbird going and blow through, and that's the route that I showed you last night that Google Maps sent me, and I was on Fulton Road.
I just still can't believe the GPS.
So, well, I've taken up enough of your time, I thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr.
I've got more stuff to talk about.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board?
My name is Bob Yoder. Excuse me. I live at 1597 Wellingshire Street Northeast. I have contacted the trustees via email, and I've spoken to Mr. Ferraro, concerning garbage trucks coming through our allotment at 4 a.m. in the morning, making a great deal of noise, waking us up every time they do it and disturbing us greatly. I know there are other neighbors that have this also. So I have contacted the public refuse 4 times, trying to get them to change the schedule. Gary Mall has called in 3 times. We've gotten nothing. In fact, they've come earlier than they used to. So I'm here to see if there's anything we can do to get this stopped and keep them from coming in the allotment before 6:30 in the morning.
Well, I know I'm talking with Gary, and Gary's provided some additional documentation feedback to me that I've provided to the board. And Mr. Farrar, we're investigating right now some language that Jackson Township has, but that has to go before the zoning commission, that has to go before the zoning commission for consideration, at which point they would make a recommendation to approve it or reject it.
What do they have specifically, you know?
It's not till 6:30 in
Yeah, I
the
think
morning.
it's like a time frame.
And it's in their zoning code?
Yes, it is.
And they do enforce it because I moved here from Jackson Township and we had to call them.
Do you know how they enforce it?
Sent the police out. And they say, if you come in again, you will get ticketed.
I just don't know how that works. Captain, can you?
Absolutely not. Now that there being a home rule,
We have to find
we
out.
can't act under federal law on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it is under
Maybe
home rule
so.
out there. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll check.
it would have to be
Yeah.
home rule.
Give me a minute, I know I'm wrong.
Let me see, let me say this without disturbing you or hurting your feelings, but for me as one trustee, and you can take off from this if you could. For me, it's difficult when one resident complains about garbage and not an allotment for it. In other words, for me personally, it'd be more effective if it's an ongoing thing in the allotment, if you had a petition or more people here to tell us that they're tired of that garbage, making this sound at 4:30 in the morning. And again, I don't mean to disrespect you, but I'm saying it's difficult for one person, because now you can get one person from every allotment, just one person saying, hey, I want this changed, just for one person. It's very effective if you came in here with a petition or more of the allotment came in and said, look, we're tired of it, we're all waking up at 4:30 in the morning. It makes it, for me, it makes it a lot easier if we're not even entertain that thought of possibly doing what Jackson's done. Does that make sense without?
As you understand it, I guess I don't understand the hesitation, because to me, it's a common sense thing. To me, we shouldn't even have this discussion. This company should not do this.
Well, they should. No, I mean, I live on Fulton Road, and you ought to hear what I hear.
Yes, and I ride on Apple Grove,
Yeah.
so I get a lot of it also. I guess part of the problem is the fact that my master bedroom faces the front of the house, and the people right across the street from me have this refuse company. So that truck stops in front of my bedroom window, and he's about 50 feet from my bed, and races that engine, lifts that can, flips it, shakes it, bangs it on the ground. They go up the cul-de-sac across the street from us. They normally back out with their beeper going. So once they are done, my night is gone.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem going and trying to get some petitions. I know a few of the people.
Well, I'm only one
that
trustee.
Well,
These two have this, but I'm just one. I mean, I'm not getting shown any disrespect. It just makes it.
I actually feel your pain. And I never thought about this until you actually wrote us, because what Mr. Lena was saying is correct. We haven't heard this before, so it wasn't one of those things that I had thought about. But I will say, my garbage goes out on Sunday night, my neighbor on one side of me goes out on Monday night, and my other neighbor goes out on Tuesday night. So for 3 nights in a row, I hear exactly what you're hearing up one side of the street and back down the other. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
But the other companies don't usually come until 9 o'clock or later. You know, they come in, Republic comes in and takes ours at 4 in the morning, but I can leave and go down to Apple Grove at 8 in the morning, and those cans are still full. Let them take those. Those houses aren't close to the road. They're not disturbing people like they're in a subdivision. Our houses are very close to the road.
I think when they do their routes, though, I think they look at their routes to see how fast they can get into problem areas. And it's easier to do when there's no traffic on the road, and they don't have to, you know, so I understand their logic, but I think it is something that we can.
As I had stated, Gary's provided feedback from at least 3 other individuals within the hills. And that's what's been provided along with the link to investigate. And then we'll wait to see if there's also information from Wellington employees. Because I know Gary and Roger tend to communicate quite frequently. I draw a lot of similar parallels between the two. A lot.
If there's something you need from me, I'll do what I can do. It's, you know, I've exhausted every avenue I have talking to this company, and the problem is, it's a big company. You get operators, you know. We cannot get a hold of dispatchers. We feel your pain. We understand why you feel this way. We'll pass notes along. We'll encourage it, but nothing's helped.
Well, outside of investigating, see about getting it in front of it. Well, it's home rule, that's still got to go before.
No, that'll just be,
Home rules you.
but then it's a 30-day wait. It has
You
to
have
be
to
published in
publish
the
it,
paper.
Do you want to check with Jackson?
Absolutely.
They've done, how effective it's been?
Sure.
We can look into it, right?
I know we lived down off of Dunbar last night, and we had the trucks coming in very early, and I didn't know they had a law, but I called the police to see what we could do, and he said, absolutely, we'll be out there to stop them. And at 6:30, well, actually, they were having it at 5:30, and they were stationed in the front of the allotment at 5:30 in the morning waiting on them.
They would ticket them, would they ticket
He
them?
told me, he actually come to the house and talked to me, and he said, we warned them the first time, and he said, after that, they get ticketed, and I forget what the fine was, but it was substantial.
Take a look for sure. We'll continue to follow on it through that process. You know, even if I say we had something at the next meeting, we would act on it. You're looking almost in October, you get 30 days, so the absolute best case, earliest you'd be December before anything, you know, progress on that front.
That's okay.
Because we've got to send certain public notification.
I've just exhausted every other link, so.
No, we appreciate the fact that you come in, so patience is a challenge, obviously.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Okay. Anybody else that wishes to address the board? Okay, that'll conclude public speech, concerns of trustees. Mr. Lino?
Thank you.
Mr. Sabo? I just want to pass on personal thank you, Mr. Williams, for your guys' organization sponsorship for this with the veterans coming up here. And November, so we appreciate the partnership
Great event.
there. Nothing else on concerns of trustees, I'll take concerns of the fiscal officer, Mr. Wolf.
No concerns.
Okay, it'll take us to the approval of the minutes for September 12th, 2017, and I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. Let's see, we do have a need for executive session, so be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn the executive session at 6:59 PM from this regular meeting as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.32G for the purpose of consideration of 1A, appointment of a public employee official, 1B, appointment of a public employee official, 1F, compensation of a public employee official, 2B, sale of property by competitive bid to prevent the disclosure of information that would provide competitive advantage.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.